Jude sat on a wooden bench in his modest apartment in Lagos, staring out the window at the bustling street below. It had been 15 years since he left his village in Delta State. Back then, he was just a boy fleeing a life filled with shame and betrayal. His stepmother's actions, her blatant affairs with different men, had tarnished his family's reputation and broken his father's spirit. That painful memory had shaped Jude's outlook on life, especially his distrust for Yoruba women, like his stepmother. Now at 32, Jude had finally achieved some stability. He owned a thriving electronics shop and had saved enough to start thinking about settling down. The idea of having a family gave him hope, but a nagging fear lingered in his mind. What if he married the wrong woman? His relationships with Yoruba women had always been complicated. Despite their charm, beauty, and intelligence, Jude couldn't shake the suspicion that they might betray him, just as his stepmother had betrayed his father. He sighed deeply, wondering how he could ever find the right partner with such doubts weighing him down. One sunny afternoon, Jude visited his childhood friend, Emeka, who had also moved to Lagos years ago. Over bowls of steaming pepper soup, they reminisced about their struggles and successes in the city. "Jude, when are you settling down? You're not getting any younger," Emeka teased, grinning widely. Jude chuckled, but didn't respond immediately. Finally, he said, "It's not that simple. The girls I meet are mostly Yoruba. You know how I feel about them." Emeka frowned. "Jude, not all Yoruba women are like your stepmother. You can't judge everyone based on one person's actions." Jude shook his head. "You wouldn't understand, Emeka. It's not just what she did. It's how it broke my father. I can't take that risk." Emeka sighed, realizing this wasn't an argument he could win. "Still, Jude, be careful. Don't let the past keep you from finding happiness." That conversation stuck with Jude, even after he left. As he walked home, he wondered if his fear was keeping him from seeing the good in people. Jude's life seemed to revolve around his shop, where he interacted with countless customers daily. One of them, a lively and confident woman named Tolu, had become a regular. Tolu's infectious laugh and sharp wit often made Jude forget his reservations, but deep down, he knew she was Yoruba. One day, as they chatted while Jude repaired her phone, Tolu surprised him. "Jude, you've been fixing my gadgets for months, and I've grown to like you. What do you think about us dating seriously?" Jude froze, unsure how to respond. He liked Tolu's energy, but her question brought all his fears rushing back. He cleared his throat, trying to buy time. "Tolu, I didn't expect that. Can we talk about this later?" She laughed. "Of course. Take your time. I just needed to put it out there." That night, Jude lay in bed, her words echoing in his mind. Tolu seemed genuine, but his heart was heavy with doubt. Could he trust her? Or was she another version of his stepmother? Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, Jude found himself dreaming of his childhood home. The small village was peaceful, but a shadow loomed over it. He saw his father sitting on a wooden stool, staring blankly ahead while his stepmother whispered to another man behind him. Jude tried to shout, to warn his father, but no sound came out. The man and his stepmother laughed as they walked away, leaving his father alone. Suddenly, the scene shifted. Jude was older, standing at the altar beside a bride he couldn't recognize. As he lifted her veil, he saw Tolu's face. Jude woke up in a cold sweat. Was this a warning? Or just his fears playing tricks on him? The dream left him shaken. He knew he couldn't keep ignoring his emotions. If he was serious about settling down, he needed to confront his fears. But how? The next morning, Jude was arranging phones in his shop when a familiar voice called out, "Jude, long time." He turned to see Agochi, a childhood friend from his village. Her smile was warm and genuine, a reminder of simpler times. "Agochi, what are you doing in Lagos?" Jude asked, surprised. "I moved here last year for work. I'm an accountant now," she replied, her eyes lighting up. They spent the next hour catching up. Agochi shared stories about their village, including news about his father. "He still talks about you, you know? He's proud of what you've built here." Jude felt a pang of guilt for staying away so long. Agochi's presence was comforting, and for the first time in years, he felt connected to his roots. As she left, Jude found himself thinking about Agochi more than he expected. Could she be the kind of woman he was looking for? In the days following Agochi's visit, Jude couldn't stop thinking about her. She represented everything he longed for: familiarity, simplicity, and a connection to his roots. He wondered if fate had brought her to Lagos to guide him. At the same time, Tolu kept pressing for an answer about their relationship. Each time she visited the shop, her eyes carried a mix of hope and determination. Jude found himself torn. Tolu was kind and supportive, but her Yoruba heritage remained an obstacle he couldn't ignore. Jude decided to meet Emeka again for advice. "Agochi's back in my life," Jude said, his voice uncertain. "She's from my village, and I trust her. But Tolu, she's here now, and she cares about me." Emeka sighed deeply. "Jude, love isn't about tribes. It's about the person, but you need to make a choice soon. Don't string them along. It's not fair to either of them." Jude nodded, though his heart was still conflicted. One evening, Tolu invited Jude to dinner at her place. Despite his hesitations, he agreed. Her apartment was warm and inviting, filled with the aroma of egusi soup. As they ate, Tolu opened up about her dreams and fears. "Jude, I've been hurt before," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I believe in giving people a chance. Life's too short to live in fear." Her words struck a chord. Jude realized he was doing exactly that, letting his past control his future. But could he let go of his fear and give Tolu a chance? The evening ended on a warm note, but as Jude walked home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to take a step back. Days later, Jude made a decision that surprised even himself. He would return to his village for the first time in 15 years. He needed clarity, and he believed going home might help him find it. He informed Agochi of his plan, and she offered to travel with him. "It'll be good for you," she said, smiling. "The village has changed, but it's still home." The journey back was bittersweet. As the bus approached his village, memories of his childhood flooded his mind. Playing by the river, helping his father on the farm, and the betrayal that drove him away. Stepping onto the dusty path leading to his father's house, Jude felt a mix of emotions. Would this trip help him heal? Or would it reopen old wounds? Jude and Agochi arrived at his father's compound just before sunset. The house looked smaller than he remembered, its mud walls weathered by time. His father, now frail but still sharp-eyed, sat on a wooden stool under a mango tree. "Papa," Jude called, his voice trembling. His father squinted, then broke into a smile. "Jude, my son, you've come home?" The journey back was bittersweet. As the bus approached his village, memories of his childhood flooded his mind. Playing by the river, helping his father on the farm, and the betrayal that drove him away. Stepping onto the dusty path leading to his father's house, Jude felt a mix of emotions. Would this trip help him heal? Or would it reopen old wounds? Jude and Agochi arrived at his father's compound just before sunset. The house looked smaller than he remembered, its mud walls weathered by time. His father, now frail but still sharp-eyed, sat on a wooden stool under a mango tree. "Papa," Jude called, his voice trembling. His father squinted, then broke into a smile. "Jude, my son, you've come home?" The embrace between father and son was filled with unspoken emotions. They spent the evening catching up, but Jude avoided mentioning his stepmother. Instead, he focused on his life in Lagos and his desire to settle down. "Marriage is important, Jude," his father said, "but don't let the mistakes of others dictate your happiness. A good wife is about character, not tribe." His father's words lingered in Jude's mind. Maybe he had been too rigid in his beliefs. The next morning, Agochi suggested a walk around the village. They passed familiar sights: the market square, the old church, and the small stream where they used to play as children. At the market, they overheard women gossiping about Jude's stepmother. "She finally got what she deserved," one of them said. Curious, Jude approached them. "Excuse me, what happened, Mama Kechi?" The women exchanged glances before one replied, "She's been living in shame since your father divorced her. None of the men she ran after wanted to marry her. She left the village years ago." Jude felt a strange mix of anger and pity. His stepmother's actions had shattered his family, but her choices had ultimately led to her downfall. Maybe it's time to let go, Ogochi said softly, sensing his inner turmoil. Jude nodded, realizing she was right. Holding on to his resentment had only held him back. Back at the compound, Jude's father shared more about the past. "Jude, I should have protected you better," he admitted. "But I've learned something over the years. Bitterness will eat you alive if you let it. Forgive, not for her, but for yourself." Jude sat quietly, absorbing his father's words. He thought of Tolu and how his distrust had clouded his judgment. Maybe she deserved a fair chance. That evening, Jude made a decision. He would give himself time to sort his feelings, but he would no longer let his stepmother's actions define his future. After spending a week in the village, Jude returned to Lagos feeling lighter. The trip had given him a new perspective on his fears and biases. Ogochi had been a supportive companion throughout, and her presence reminded Jude of the simplicity and trust he had always craved. Back in his shop, life resumed as usual, but Tolu's absence was noticeable. She hadn't visited in days, and Jude realized how much he missed her. He decided it was time to have an honest conversation with her. That evening, Jude called Tolu. "Can we meet tomorrow? I think we need to talk," he said. Tolu agreed, though her tone was cautious. Jude spent the night rehearsing what he would say, determined to be truthful about his feelings and fears. The next day, Jude met Tolu at a quiet restaurant. She looked stunning, but her guarded expression told him she expected the worst. "Tolu," Jude began, "I need to be honest with you. I've been carrying a lot of fear and mistrust because of something that happened in my family. It's made it hard for me to fully trust Yoruba women, and that's unfair to you." Tolu's eyes softened. "Jude, I've noticed your hesitation, but I didn't know why. Thank you for telling me. But you need to understand, I'm not your stepmother. I've worked hard to build my life with honesty and integrity." Her words struck Jude deeply. He realized how much he had judged her unfairly. "You're right, Tolu. I've been wrong, and I'm sorry. But I need time to process everything. I don't want to hurt you by rushing into something I'm not ready for." Tolu nodded slowly. "Take your time, Jude. I just hope you find peace, with or without me." As weeks passed, Jude found himself spending more time with Ogochi. They shared a deep connection rooted in their shared history. Ogochi's steady nature and kind heart made her an anchor in Jude's chaotic thoughts. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park, Ogochi spoke up. "Jude, I've always admired you. Even when we were kids, you had a strong will. But now, I see someone who's torn between his past and his future. What do you really want?" Her question left Jude speechless. What did he want? A life free from fear, or a chance to love without boundaries? For the first time, Jude admitted, "I don't know, but I think I'm starting to figure it out." One afternoon, Tolu walked into Jude's shop unannounced. She looked serious but calm, as if she had come to a decision. "Jude, I've been thinking," she began. "I care about you, but I can't keep waiting forever. I need to know if you're willing to give us a real chance, or if I should move on." Jude sighed, his heart heavy. "Tolu, I respect you, and I appreciate your patience, but I'm not ready to commit right now. I don't want to lead you on." Tolu's face softened, though her eyes held sadness. "Thank you for being honest. I hope you find the peace you're looking for." With that, Tolu left, and Jude felt a wave of guilt and relief. He admired her strength, but he knew he couldn't give her what she deserved. Not yet. Later that evening, Jude and Ogochi met for dinner at her apartment. As they talked, Ogochi shared more about her life in Lagos. "Jude, there's something I want to tell you," she said, her voice steady. "I've always cared about you, even back in the village. And now, seeing the man you've become, I care even more." Jude was taken aback. Ogochi had always been a close friend, but he hadn't considered her as a potential partner until now. "Ogochi, you've always been there for me, and I value you deeply. But I don't want to rush into anything just because it feels safe," he admitted. Ogochi smiled gently. "I understand, Jude. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just needed you to know how I feel." Her words planted a seed of possibility in Jude's heart. Could Ogochi be the one he had been searching for all along? Jude decided to call his father that night to share everything on his mind. As they talked, his father listened patiently, offering words of wisdom when needed. Jude, love is a journey, not a quick decision, his father said. But don't let fear guide your choices. Look for a woman who will stand by you, respect you, and build a life with you, regardless of where she comes from. Jude felt a deep sense of clarity after the conversation. He realized that his hesitation wasn't just about his stepmother's betrayal. It was also about his fear of making a mistake. "Thank you, Papa," Jude said. "I think I know what I need to do." The call ended, and for the first time in weeks, Jude felt a sense of calm. He was ready to take the next step, but which path would he choose? The days that followed were filled with introspection for Jude. He spent his mornings at the shop, his afternoons reflecting on his conversations with Tolu, Ogochi, and his father, and his evenings in solitude. He realized he couldn't continue living in uncertainty. Both women had shown him patience and understanding, but it was time to make a decision. He had to be honest, not just with them, but also with himself. One evening, as he sat by the window of his small apartment, watching the busy Lagos streets below, Jude made up his mind. He would choose based on character, shared values, and the ability to build a future, not on fears rooted in the past. Jude decided to visit Tolu first. He found her at her shop, busy arranging goods. She greeted him with a warm smile, though there was a hint of guardedness in her eyes. "Tolu, I've been thinking a lot about us," Jude began. "I respect you and admire your strength, but I realize I haven't been fair. I let my fears cloud my judgment, and for that, I'm sorry." Tolu listened quietly, her expression unreadable. "Jude, I appreciate your honesty, but what does this mean for us?" Jude hesitated, then said, "I think it's best we go our separate ways. You deserve someone who can love you without hesitation, and I'm not that person." Tolu nodded slowly, her composure unshaken. "I understand. I wish you the best, Jude. I really do." As he walked away, Jude felt a pang of loss, but also a sense of relief. He had made the first step toward clarity. With Tolu no longer in the picture, Jude turned his attention to Ogochi. Her steady presence and deep understanding of his struggles had left a mark on him. He invited her to dinner at a quiet restaurant. As they ate, Jude opened up about his decision. "Ogochi, you've been my anchor through this journey. I don't know what the future holds, but I want to take that journey with you." Ogochi's eyes lit up with a mixture of joy and relief. "Jude, I've always believed in you. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." For the first time, Jude felt a genuine sense of hope. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Ogochi by his side, he was ready to face it. With Ogochi now in his life as more than just a friend, Jude began to see the world differently. They spent more time together, sharing dreams, fears, and plans for the future. Ogochi's patience and calm nature brought a balance to Jude's otherwise busy and sometimes chaotic life. One weekend, Ogochi suggested they visit a community development event in Lagos. "It's a good opportunity to meet people and support small businesses," she said. At the event, Jude marveled at Ogochi's ability to connect with everyone she met. Her warmth and sincerity shone through, and he realized how much he admired her. For the first time, he felt at peace with the idea of settling down. During the same event, Jude ran into someone he hadn't seen in years, Bola, a childhood acquaintance from his village who had also moved to Lagos. Bola greeted him warmly, but seemed hesitant when she noticed Ogochi. "Is she your fiancée?" Bola asked with a smile. Jude chuckled nervously. "Not yet, but we're getting there." Bola's face softened. "That's good to hear. You deserve happiness, Jude. I remember how tough things were for you back then." Her words reminded Jude of his journey, from the pain of betrayal to the struggles in Lagos. It solidified his belief that he was finally on the right path. Back at his apartment, Jude began to think seriously about proposing to Ogochi. He wanted the moment to be meaningful and reflective of their shared history. He called Emeka for advice. "I'm thinking of proposing to Ogochi, but I want it to be special," Jude said. Emeka laughed. "Finally, well, why not do something simple but personal? Maybe take her to a place that means something to both of you." Jude liked the idea. He decided to take Ogochi to a small riverside park they had discovered during one of their walks. It was quiet, serene, and symbolic of the calm she had brought into his life. The day of the proposal arrived, and Jude could hardly contain his nerves. He invited Agochi for a walk, leading her to the riverside park. As they sat on a bench, overlooking the water, Jude turned to her. Agochi, you've been my rock, my friend, and my source of strength. I've spent so many years running from my past, but you've helped me see that love and trust are worth fighting for. He pulled out a small ring and continued, will you build a future with me? As my wife? Tears welled up in Agochi's eyes as she nodded. Yes, Jude, I will. In that moment, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the river, Jude felt the weight of his fears lift. He had finally chosen love over bitterness, and it felt right. Jude and Agochi decided to share their engagement news with their close friends and family. The first call was to Jude's father. Papa, I proposed to Agochi, and she said yes. Jude announced excitedly. His father's laughter rang through the phone. Oh, my son, this is wonderful news. Agochi is a good woman. I knew it from the moment I met her. May your union be blessed. Next, they called Agochi's family, who were equally overjoyed. We've always liked you, Jude, Agochi's elder brother said. You two make a strong pair. The couple also shared the news with Emeka, who immediately began planning a celebratory dinner. You didn't think I'd let this milestone pass without a party, did you? Emeka teased. Jude's heart swelled with gratitude. For the first time in years, he felt surrounded by love and support. Not everyone was as supportive, though. When Jude's shop assistant, Chaik, heard about the engagement, he raised an eyebrow. So, after all these years of avoiding Yoruba women, you chose someone from your past? You're really going backward, Jude, Chaik said with a smirk. Jude felt a pang of annoyance, but kept his composure. This isn't about tribe or history, Chaik. It's about finding someone who understands me and shares my values. Chaik shrugged. If you say so. Just make sure you're not settling, because it's easy. Jude didn't let Chaik's words get to him. He knew his decision wasn't about settling. It was about choosing someone who had stood by him through thick and thin. With the engagement formalized, wedding preparations began in earnest. Agochi and Jude decided to blend elements of their Delta and Igbo cultures into the ceremony. I want this wedding to represent both of us, Agochi said as they discussed the details. They planned a traditional Igbo introduction ceremony, followed by a Delta-style reception with music, dance, and plenty of local delicacies. Emeka volunteered to be the master of ceremonies, promising to keep the energy lively. As they worked through their plans, Jude marveled at how smoothly everything was coming together. Agochi's organizational skills and calm demeanor made even the most stressful moments manageable. A week before the wedding, Jude received an unexpected call. It was from his stepmother, Mama Nkechi. I heard you're getting married, she said, her voice hesitant. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'd like to attend. I just want to wish you well. Jude was stunned. He hadn't heard from her in years, and her request reopened old wounds. I'll have to think about it, he replied curtly. When he told Agochi about the call, she offered her usual wisdom. Jude, you've come so far. Maybe this is an opportunity to truly let go of the past. Her words made Jude think. Was he ready to face the woman who had caused so much pain in his life? Jude spent the next few days wrestling with the idea of allowing his stepmother to attend the wedding. Memories of her betrayal still lingered, but Agochi's words echoed in his mind. Finally, he decided to meet Mama Nkechi before making a decision. They arranged to meet at a quiet restaurant. When Jude arrived, he saw a woman who looked older and more frail than he remembered. Her confident demeanor had been replaced by a humble and sorrowful air. Jude, she began, her voice trembling, I know I hurt you and your father. I've lived with that guilt every day. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm truly sorry. Jude studied her, searching for any signs of insincerity, but her regret seemed genuine. What you did broke our family, Mama Nkechi. I've carried that pain for years, and it's shaped the way I see the world. I understand, she said softly, but you're building a new family now. Don't let my mistakes define your happiness. Jude nodded slowly. I'll think about it. This isn't an easy decision for me. The day of the wedding finally arrived, and the atmosphere was electric with joy and celebration. Family and friends gathered from both Delta and Igbo communities, blending traditions into a vibrant, colorful event. As the bride and groom stood before their guests, Jude scanned the crowd. To his surprise, he saw Mama Nkechi sitting quietly in the back, her presence subdued but respectful. He felt a pang of emotion, but chose to focus on the moment. Ogochi looked radiant in her traditional attire, and when they exchanged vows, Jude felt a deep sense of peace. The weight of the past had lifted, replaced by hope and love for the future. During the reception, Mama Nkechi approached Jude. "Thank you for letting me be here," she said. Jude nodded. "I'm not sure I've fully forgiven you, but I'm ready to move forward. I hope you can too." As the evening wore on, Jude danced with Ogochi, surrounded by their loved ones. In that moment, he knew he had made the right choice. Love, trust, and family were no longer concepts clouded by fear. They were now his reality. Thank you for watching. Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.